My name's Rhiannon White. I'm co-artistic director of Commonwealth Theatre, and I live and I'm based here in Cardiff.
My name's Katy Baird. I'm an artist and curator. I am based in London. I'm from Glasgow originally, and I'm here in Cardiff at Chapter doing my show Workshy, which is a show about work and the things we do for money.
In Chapter this week, I have, for the first time, shared some writing I've been doing for a report about art and class for the Arts, Humanities and Research Council. So yesterday we did a sharing of some of the interviews that I did and a little bit of an interactive kind of workshop.
So Workshy is a theatre show. In it I talk about the jobs that I've done over the last 20 or so years, and within that I'm looking at ideas around class and aspiration, and I talk quite a lot about in the show about how we kind of end up where we end up, and who gives us, I don't want to say permission, but I guess it's thinking about the bigger picture around work and labour, and particularly it looks a lot at ideas around status, around what particular jobs gives you a particular status, regardless actually even of money, and I think that's kind of important to be thinking about when we're thinking about ideas around class, privilege and aspirations, because often, there's of course this sort of idea that if you work really hard you'll get somewhere, but that's not necessarily the case, because if you're a certain type of person and you've been told your whole life that you can do something and that you're meant to do something, that you're okay to do something and that you should be doing something, then you're going to do it. If you haven't, then it's much more difficult. And of course I talk a lot about contacts, and it's like often like what you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and different things like that. So it's just exploring that through, I guess, my personal journey. I'm 40 this year, so it's probably actually jobs over the last 24 years, if I think about it, maybe a bit more, and just relating my experiences to this sort of wider idea of aspirations in class.
My report links very nicely into what Katie's been doing. So my report is it's about who gets to become an artist, and who gets to make choices on the value of art. So I'm really interested in, I started with my own journey. So I grew up in a council estate in Cardiff called St Mellons, and I found I loved theatre. I loved making theatre before I even knew what that was. It was just playing, and I found an entry point through the back door of a theatre by luck. I'd never been to the theatre before, and when I went to the theatre it was the first time that I ever experienced what social class meant. I didn't know what it meant to be working class or lower class or middle class. And I felt different. And I've been working with a lot of artists recently who are working class, and this thing of not being good enough comes up all the time. And I think there's this real problem at the moment with the feeling that working class people who live in council estates are left with, this deep kind of feeling of not being good enough or not being worth enough, and not being able to do the things that other people do because of privilege. And what I'm trying to find the answer for is why not? Why not? Why can't someone be the next politician, or why can't someone be the next artist? And what happens to the art world when those people aren't coming through and aren't making art? And what happens when the people who are making art are not of that class and telling those stories and making caricatures of people who do come from council estates or working class? So it's kind of an exploration into all of that, just provoking a little bit and kind of taking a snapshot of how people feel in the country. And what I'm going to do with the report eventually, hopefully, is share it with institutions, with organisations and with funding bodies.
I think a lot about access, and I know that from my experience, a lot of artists are coming via university, and that's where I actually got, shall I use the word exposed? I'll use the word exposed because it seems fit, and it's where I got exposed, particularly to sort of live art performance, experimental theatre, was through university. And I was quite late when I was in university. I was 26 when I first went, and I think that's the journey of many people. But then, of course, for the people that are not going to university, where are those access points? Where do they feel? Where do they have that? They feel that they have the language and the understanding to go to these spaces. And I guess it goes down to that feeling of belonging.
Yeah.
And for me, part of Workshy, and I've been touring it. I've done a 16-day tour now across the UK, and a lot of it's been sort of. I particularly wanted to make a theatre piece. Like a lot of my work a lot of my other work is durational, one-on-one, and plays with different forms. But I really wanted to make a performance that, for me, was going to be. I hate that word accessible, so I'm not going to use it. But something that, a theatre is a space that people can come to, and different people can come to and do come to. But to see these stories on stage, because you don't often see it. I've made that work because I want people to come and hopefully see a little bit of their own life in it, and also other people to come and see maybe a life that they've not experienced or they don't know that much about, and to see it in a kind of humorous, funny, and most importantly for me, unapologetic way. That's what's important about talking about these things. But for me, the whole of Workshy, I just felt that my life actually just was not represented really on stage at all, and if it was done in a kind of issue-based, worthy kind of way sometimes, and I just feel like, well, you know what, rather than moan about it, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm just going to make that show and talk about all the stuff that everyone just seems to get up to, that just doesn't get talked about in a kind of frank, hopefully humorous way, but definitely in that kind of unapologetic, this is what happens, this is what we do, and thinking hopefully around the reasons why. And for me, it's a sort of structural society issue that stops a lot of things from happening.
I'm sick of going to the theatre and seeing working class people on drugs or in care or domestic violence, or like the list goes on and on and on and on. It's like, how about we see someone who's powerful on stage? How about we see someone who's just honest and truthful? And I swear down, like, there's this whole opinion that people think the working class people don't get art. They get it. They really get it, and they love it, and they understand it. I've taken some really experimental stuff into some mad places, and people understand it, and they get it, and they feel it.
Yeah.
All of the work that Commonwealth do begin with stories. So usually it begins with stories that we hear from family, from friends, and so we made a show about domestic abuse called Our Glass House, and it was the first person we interviewed was my mum, and then we interviewed loads of women that women, men, children that had experienced domestic abuse. And the process, it was a really long process, it was a really organic process, and those women, men and children were included for the duration of the time that we made the show. And we also worked in a house, so we staged the show in a house in a street. It had next door neighbours, it was on like different streets around the UK, but every time we'd go there for months in advance, and we'd build the set with everyone in the street. And some of these people had never been to the theatre before, and just seeing a theatre be built on their street, and then this world be built on their street, and then provoking conversation around domestic abuse was really incredible. So like every night the show would spill out into the street, and the neighbours would come out, and they would all be part of it. So for us, like, theatre feels like a movement, like a big political movement, and it's not just about the show itself, but it's about all those people coming together to make something happen. And the impact I've found from working in that way is like people talk, and people, like we were saying, like people are really hungry for art, and that's where I first learned doing Our Glass House, how hungry people are, and how much people want to speak about it. And at the end of the night, after every show, we would bring the whole audience together, and we'd have conversations for hours in the front room, and we'd all just sit there and drink tea. And it's just that being able to talk about stuff, being able to come together, being able to share vision, share art, is incredibly powerful. Do you know what? I performed in the first ever Experiementica, which was amazing, which was years ago. It was when I left uni, I was like 21 or something. Experiementica for Cardiff is absolutely amazing, because not only does it bring art to the city, it really supports and nurtures young artists in Cardiff. I'm really impressed by the like the sense of community that is down there, but also it's a really supportive environment. So I feel like yesterday when I shared some of my research, it was quite a vulnerable position to be. I felt quite exposed, but I also felt incredibly safe in that moment, being in that room with people that were really with me actually on that journey. So you need Experiementica in Cardiff.
I think for me Experiementica is kind of one of the most, I guess, well-known places in Wales, and certainly the only place I know in Wales, not coming here, that programmes and supports work that is taking risks, and I think that's super important, you know. And I know from the audiences that come, I know it's busy, I know they have this, you know, you can pay what you can, and I think, again, talking about barriers, that does reduce the barrier in some ways, you know, the kind of financial barrier. And the audiences are just always great here in Cardiff, you know, and that's all you can ask of a venue to do, really, is to create these spaces where I can do what I do, and the audiences are open to it, and we can just get together and have a proper laugh, you know. And I think it's brilliant, actually. I think it's great what Experiementica have done.
That's why you should come and see Workshy.